So we are looking at group stages, developmental stages. Hopefully some of this will be familiar to you guys tonight. Last week we talked about leadership styles, and then tonight we're talking about group stages, and obviously um, the group leader's awareness of which stage we're at is super, super important in all of this. Okay. So group counseling progresses through these predictable stages, and then understanding them allows us to anticipate the group's needs, plan effective interventions, support healthy group dynamics, kind of
You upstairs?
like Erickson's psychosocial stages or psychosocial model. Each group stage builds upon successful completion of the prior stages, right? And so we're not going to move to a later stage until we've moved through one. This gets especially complicated with open groups because we're constantly cycling in new people and cycling out older people. It's just kind of constant turnover. So it can be a little bit more difficult identifying which stage we're in, when there's groups like that. Okay. So we're going to look at several key theorists and the models that they proposed for group development. And we'll hopefully be able to see the similarities in a lot of them. In a minute, I'll show you a chart that I've included in the discussion group as well, so you can kind of see a side-by-side comparison of all of them. But we'll start with Yalom. Again, Yalom is like the group's guru. He's one of the biggest names that we need to understand with groups. And so his orientation was that members seek acceptance and define roles. When it comes to conflict, members challenge each other and the leader, and that's natural. And as far as cohesion is concerned, there's mutual support. And so it's us against the world kind of unity. A true teamwork, members are able to confront internal resistances, and that's how the group members grow within the group. Okay. And so that's kind of where a Yalom would say groups go, is that starts with orientation, it moves into conflict, and then they eventually arrive at the cohesion stage. Okay. And then we have Tuckman and Jensen. These are kind of fun because they rhyme for the most part. Forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning, which doesn't rhyme, but it sounds very similar. Okay. So in the forming orientation stage, group members are seeking structure and establishing acceptance. In the storming and transition stage, this is where struggles for dominance and roles and control start to emerge. Who's going to be the alpha in the group, that kind of thing. In the norming stage, this is where trust is established. There's openness, group norms kind of settle in. People begin to feel like, okay, this is how it's going to be. In the performing or working stage, there's open self-disclosure. People are feeling like their interactions are productive. We're actually getting somewhere. And then in the adjourning stage, this is where we summarize. There's closure, there's emotional distancing. People are getting ready to end their time in the group. And so there's some kind of wrapping up things that happen. Schutz talks about these three different stages. There's the inclusion, where group members desire acceptance and leader approval. In the power stage, there's a struggle for autonomy from the leader, right? So they start to push back a little bit against what the leader might be saying. And then the affection stage, where there's mutual support and care among the members. But we kind of have to go through that power stage in order to get to that the affection stage.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
This is Linda Banks. Can I say something for a minute?
Sure.
Then I'm going to jump off.
Yeah.
Okay. I passed
Yay!
my test. Yes.
Awesome.
And Josh, I'm going to be honest with you. You got the test.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you jumped on to tell us that, Linda. What a great interruption.
Congratulations.
Yes. Yes. I'm telling you all, Josh got the test.
Well,
yes.
You did
Yes,
the work.
why you say that, Queen? What?
And I'm going to tell you why I say that. A lot of examples that he provided us, they just changed some. He must have an old test.
I don't.
You don't?
No. Nobody
Well,
does.
okay, well, let me stop that then. But Josh, everything you told us is on that test.
Okay,
The scenario you use is just
Yeah,
like what they use.
good,
A
I
lot of
believe
it, a
that.
lot of it is.
good.
I
Well,
believe that.
Linda,
Uh-huh.
that's so exciting for you, and I'm really thrilled that you passed that test. You did the hard work of passing that test, okay? And it was
Congratulations.
that's awesome.
Nice job.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
So for me, a lot of it that I had, it is group counseling.
Okay. Good
They
to
are on that group counseling thing, and I had a lot of ethics questions. Those are my score. I don't know why the score changes because when I took the test the first time,
Yeah.
I need a 103. When I took it this time, I need a 91.
Okay. Yeah.
So I
There's a
don't know why.
yeah, there's a reason for that, and I can explain that a little bit later if people want to know why there's different scores, passing scores. But yeah, that's awesome. What a load off, huh?
Yeah, so I just
Having
want
that.
to let everybody know that I did pass the test. If you do what Josh say do and go back
Yes,
and review,
I
you'll
believe
pass
that.
the test.
Yeah.
Oh
Well,
my
that's good to hear.
God, I
Thank
gotta
you.
get through.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
I
jumping on.
believe
Jesus.
that.
So I just
Thank
want to
you.
let you all know.
Congratulations. Okay.
And I went back and listened at his recording the day before. I listened to every recording that he had won over that I didn't understand. And it helped me out a
Oh,
lot.
good.
You're awesome. Way to
So I
go.
just want to let you all know. Good luck to you all and congratulations because you all gonna pass this test. If you follow Josh, you're gonna pass the test. I'm telling
I believe that.
So,
Oh,
Thank you so much, Linda, for
you. You
you're
that
are
encouragement.
welcome.
congratulations,
Yes,
Queen.
thank you all. And I enjoy being with you all.
Okay.
awesome.
All right,
It was great having you. Thanks, Linda.
all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
congratulations.
That's awesome. Awesome hearing that, isn't it? Really encouraging when people come back and talk about that. So, okay, we're gonna jump back in. That was a good interruption. Okay, so let's move on to GASDA. So GASDA stages, exploratory stage, where we have very surface level interactions. The transition stage is where we see increased depth and self-disclosure. The action stage is where there's productive interactions that are focused on change. And then the termination stage is decreasing engagement and group closure. Are you seeing a lot of similarities between these stages? Yeah. So many of them are very similar. And so this is where that chart's going to come in handy is you're going to be able to see them side by side and uh, be familiar with, the language that goes with each individual group. Okay. So just one more, Corey and Corey. So they have these 6 stages, the pre-group issues where forming, screening, expectations come into play. Corey and Corey are really the only ones who have an explicit like pre-group stage and post-group stage. Okay, so keep that in mind as well. That if there's like pre-group stage and post-group stage, that's Corey and Corey. And then the middle stages are kind of similar to the other ones. The initial stage where there's orientation and trust building, the transition stage where there's resistance and conflict, working stage where there's cohesion, productivity, and deeper exploration, the final stage where there's termination and summarization. And then again, we have this unique post-group issue where we're evaluating the group's effectiveness, following up with members, checking in on them, things like that. Okay. So here's here's a chart that I created that has these 5 primary theorists and the stages as they're named. Really, we've got kind of the 5 different stages, and you'll see in Corey and Corey how we've got 2 stages kind of within the first stage, and then 2 stages within the last stage as well. Okay, I'm not going to go over all of this, but um, what I would recommend as far as like, if I know everybody's wondering, like, what do I memorize? I would for sure memorize Tuckman and Jensen's forming, storming, norming, performing, adjourning. I would make sure that we know those. And just because Yalom is such an integral part of group work, I'd make sure that you know Yalem's stages There's only 4 of them that are explicit, but we want to make sure that we know Yalom and Tuckman. Okay. Okay, we're going to dive deeper into what actually happens during all of these stages. But before we do that, are there any questions so far on what we've talked about? Okay. Well, that was just an overview. So let's look at the primary tasks and what the leader's role is within each of these stages. Okay. So during the introduction, orientation, forming stage, main issues have to do with inclusion, identity, trust, goal setting, right? We're looking at how the group is beginning to gel together from the very start. So tasks would be initial self-disclosure. So group members talking about themselves, what they're there for, those sorts of things. Setting the structure and the norms. A lot of times there's rules and setting expectations, making sure that everybody knows what to expect. And like it says here, defining clear expectations and goals. Like what are we going for? Where are we headed with this group? And so what the leader is responsible for at this stage is being warm and empathetic, creating an atmosphere of respect for everyone. Managing initial resistance. So there may be group members that are not super thrilled about being there or are unsure. Sometimes if it's a mandated group, that can be a big challenge right at the beginning. And then employing icebreakers and trust building exercises. So really just warming the group members up to being there. Okay. So I decided to do something a little different with the case vignettes for this lesson. And I wrote it kind of like a group leader is journaling about their experience. Okay. I thought that this would be a little bit different. And so this is a group leader talking about their experience in the initial stage here. So as a group leader, I welcome the members into our first session. Each member introduced themselves cautiously, sharing basic facts about their backgrounds. I noticed hesitation and nervous glances exchanged around the room. To build initial trust and establish comfort, I gently encourage self-disclosure by sharing a bit about myself professionally and inviting each member to briefly discuss their expectations and goals. We then collaboratively established group guidelines for confidentiality, respect, mutual support, and then by the end of the session, tension had eased somewhat and members appeared cautiously hopeful. Okay, so that kind of captures what it would be like for a group leader in this initial stage of group formation. Okay. And then we have the transition, power and control, storming stage. Main issues here are anxiety, defensiveness, and resistance. Okay, so we've done the introductions and now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, which is where people have all of their ways of avoiding dealing with things beginning to show up, right? So the behaviors we might notice in the group members would be power struggles, resistance, judgmental attitudes. There might be verbal conflicts among group members. We might also start to see like subgroups forming, like cliques, or I led a group once where there was kind of a class clown, and he had a buddy that was kind of the class clown in training. I guess that's kind of how I thought about it. So they had formed these little subgroups, and that's kind of normal at this stage as well. And so what the leader needs to do is just continue moving forward with authenticity, concreteness, and deeper self-disclosure, right? We want to be really clear with the vibe that we're creating in how we interact with the group. Differentiating between constructive challenges and personal attacks, right? Some of those constructive challenges are just going to be normal at this stage. And especially as group leaders, we need to not take them personally. It just makes sense that that's what's happening because there's lots of ego defenses that are showing up, right? And then also techniques that are focusing on addressing resistance and conflict, right? And so this is where we could look at some of the things that are said that might be resistant and use those as catalysts for deeper exploration. Okay? Okay. Does anybody want to read this one? It doesn't just need to be me. Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll read it.
I don't know who that was.
That's Michelle.
Okay, Michelle, go for it.
Okay. Transition, power, and control storming stage. By the fourth session, conflict began to emerge openly. Two members, Jasmine and Carlos, expressed frustration, feeling that a few vocal members were dominating discussions. Some group members started forming subgroups, subtly showing resistance through passive-aggressive behaviors. Recognizing these dynamics, I gently but directly confronted these behaviors, encouraging members to explore the underlying feeling of insecurity and control. By openly acknowledging the anxiety present, I modeled genuine and authentic communication, creating space for the group to safely explore their conflicts rather than avoid them.
Good, good. You see that last part is really key here, right? If we let the anxiety and the resistance take control, we've not created a safe environment for people to explore things, okay? And so at this stage, it's really crucial for the leader to continue creating the type of atmosphere that allows trust to be built and to move into the next stage of actually feeling like there's support, and the group identity is being formed. Okay. And so that's what happens here in this third stage. The issues being establishing trust, openness, mutual support, developing group identity. Dynamics would be increased cohesion, comfort, and mutual support among members. Establishment of clear group norms and expectations, increased openness and readiness for productive interactions. So this is where the group's really starting to feel like, okay, yeah, we're ready to do this. We're gaining some traction, feeling good about where things are headed. People kind of settle in when they first get there. There's not the same kind of nervousness that there once was. Everybody's like, okay, we're ready to do our thing, and they know what that thing is because that's what we do every week. Leader responses. So encouraging continued trust and deeper member interaction, facilitating open and honest communication, reinforcing positive group norms, and supporting members' collaborative efforts. Okay, somebody else want to read this next one?
I'll read it.
Okay, thanks, Jessica.
Okay. Norming, cohesion, affection stage. After navigating the challenging transition stage, our group started demonstrating clear signs of cohesion by session 8. Members began to openly support one another, offering comfort and affirmation spontaneously during vulnerable disclosures. Clear norms emerged naturally, such as active listening, validating feelings, and respectfully challenging ideas. As the leader, I reinforced these positive group norms and facilitated deeper connections through reflective exercises, guiding members to appreciate and articulate the value of the emerging group identity and mutual trust.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so can you feel just in how Jessica read that, like how at ease it's starting to feel? Like we're rocking and rolling with things, and it's like this group is happening the way that we wanted to. We're starting to really see, okay, we're ready now, right? The group is ready to begin doing the work, right? And that's what's happening in this next stage. So the working, action, productive stage. Primary issues here are accountability, behavior change, and commitment. This is really what the goal of the group is that we're trying to get to this point where group members are starting to take responsibility for their own situation and starting to see some changes if they're able to see them, in day to day, and they're committing themselves to actually doing the things that they're committing to. Dynamics are high cohesion and mutual trust. So people are starting to feel really great with one another and that they can rely on each other for support. There's open exploration, decreased leader dependency, right? So they're beginning to lean on one another instead of just the leader. Changing interaction patterns, right? And so the dynamic within the group as members interact with one another is also changing, right? There's not so much tension between group members. Obviously, some of that might still exist. Leader responses at this stage, meaningful interpretation and appropriate confrontation. Okay. Meaningful interpretation means we are offering a way of looking at what's being shared that's kind of connecting the dots for people. And of course, appropriate confrontation would be challenging, not like confronting in a conflict sense, but suggesting, hey, can I push back against what you just said? Or, maybe this is another way that you could think about that instead of that old way, right? That's kind of what we're talking about with confrontation. Encouraging emotional expression, so we're able to go a little bit deeper than just surface level things. Addressing fears of closeness or losing control. Because there's trust and high cohesion, we can encourage the group members to begin leaning into that fear, knowing that there's some safety in the group. Okay. The group leader also facilitates insight-oriented activities like dealing with dreams or projections. Obviously, this is going to depend on what type of group it is, what interventions you begin to incorporate. Okay. Okay. Who wants to read this one?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Michelle.
Can you go back? Okay. So addressing fears of closeness or losing control, is that about vulnerability?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe so. This is what happens is that we get stuck in these patterns of behavior because they serve some sort of function for us, right? And even if those patterns of behavior are dysfunctional, right, at least it's better than what happens if I don't do them. And so if I don't do these dysfunctional patterns that aren't working for me, the fear is that something else might end up happening. And so we can begin addressing that, like how has your anxiety protected you, but how is it not working? And if you gave up feeling anxious, you might feel like you're losing control over whatever being anxious controls. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody want to read this one?
I can read it.
Okay, go for it.
Yes. Working action productive stage. By session 15, the group was actively engaging in profound self-exploration. Members exhibited genuine accountability for their emotional growth and behavior change. When Elena disclosed deep-rooted fears and anxieties about abandonment, group members responded supportively, empathetically, confronting and exploring similar vulnerabilities in themselves. My role evolved into facilitating insightful connections and occasionally providing gentle interpretations, inviting deeper exploration. I encourage the group to remain emotionally open, maintaining safety and trust as we address complex interpersonal dynamics and projections.
Good. Yeah. So as Michelle was talking about, this is all about vulnerabilities, right? Really, this isn't a group work thing, but this is the idea that we can't move towards health or intimacy in our lives without conflict. And because this group is so secure with one another, the context to be able to have conflict with those things in ourselves or in those other relationships has been created to be able to lead towards that growth or that intimacy. Okay. And then finally, we have the termination, separation, adjourning stage. So primary issues, closure, evaluation, adjustment to ending, right? We're getting ready to close the group up, and there can be some anxiety sometimes related to that. So important tasks, reinforcing and summarizing growth and learning. This is kind of where we just celebrate the wins and recapture, here's what we talked about. Addressing unresolved issues among members, right? Are there any loose ends that we need to wrap up? Evaluating group processes and individual progress, and then providing resources for ongoing support. The leader's responses here are to provide emotional support for closure, and then to facilitate different techniques for termination. So whatever that might involve, and again, that's going to be dependent on the counseling theory that's being used for the group, but summary activities, and then also follow-up recommendations. Okay. Okay. Anybody want to read this last one?
I can read again, unless Sierra, I saw Sierra, your hand.
It's fine. Nobody went to read. I was going to read it again, but that's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Go for it, Jessica.
Okay, so termination, separation, adjourning stage. Approaching our final session, emotions ran high as members processed feelings of loss and gratitude for the shared experiences. As a group leader, I guided discussions summarizing significant personal growth and insights gained over our journey together. Some members expressed anxiety about losing group support. Addressing these concerns, I emphasized continued growth beyond the group, offering resources for individual counseling and peer support options. We engaged in reflective closure activities, sharing impactful memories and affirmations to honor our shared experiences. After the session, members exchanged contact information, appreciating the strong bonds formed throughout the group experience.
Now everybody say it with me. Oh, doesn't that sound nice? uh, Obviously, not every group is going to wrap up this way that Jessica just described, right? Some groups don't end like this at all. But in the termination stage, we're trying to make sure that things are ending well, where people feel hopeful, basically. Okay. So, as we're moving through these groups, Tashawn, I'm going to get to your question here on the next slide. Okay. Um, as we're moving through these groups, sometimes if you're like me, you can try to lean into a lot of structure because you feel like that's what's necessary and that's what's going to be most effective. But what the research indicates is that if you're overusing structured exercises, that it actually may not be as helpful, right? It can impede the natural developmental processes, prematurely elicit emotional disclosures, increase dependency, and lower overall effectiveness. So sometimes it's better to have a more unstructured approach with groups, which, this is why group work doesn't work well for some therapists, is because they might like to have a little bit more structure. Additionally, having effective techniques that match the developmental stage that the group is in is also important. So, for example, in the orientation stage, making sure that the exercises that are being used focus on trust building and they're introductory. In the transition stage, the techniques need to be managing resistance and power dynamics. The working stage, they need to be about deeper exploration and begin, emotionally evoking things from the members. In the termination stage, they need to be summarizing evaluation closure activities. That may go without saying, but using the wrong type of technique in the wrong stage can actually, hinder effectiveness as well. And so what Tashana asked is it normal for groups to not go through all of these stages? Okay. So I would say in general, we can expect these groups to follow these stages, right? That doesn't mean that they're going to move through them at the same rate, but generally speaking, they are going to go through all of them. They may, however, regress temporarily to earlier stages due to these different internal dynamics or external factors. Internal dynamics might be, unresolved conflicts, power struggles, disruptions in trust, lack of clarity in goals, emotional events that might happen, or as I mentioned at the very beginning, changes in membership, right? If you've got an open group that's constantly influxing new members, you might have to move back in stage, to reestablish trust, for example. External factors might involve stressors that affect group members, like crises, life events, changes in leadership, scheduling issues, or other things that are going on. Okay. Effective leaders are able to recognize these regressions promptly and adapt their approach flexibly, reestablishing stability through supportive interventions, reaffirming goals, restoring group trust and cohesion. Okay. So that's group developmental stages. Any questions or things we need to go back over? No? Okay, let's look at some practice questions. A group leader notices regression in group dynamics due to external stressors affecting multiple members simultaneously. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the leader? Implement structured exercises to regain control, revisit trust-building activities to reestablish cohesion, confront group members about not managing external issues independently, or ignore the regression, trusting the group to self-correct.
B.
Okay, heard several different responses there. Huh? Maybe everybody in the chat's giving B. Anybody else want to weigh in real quick? Or we all think it's B? You're correct. That's B, right? Revisiting trust building activities to reestablish cohesion due to external stressors. During which stage of Tuckman and Jensen's model is a group most vulnerable to splitting into conflicting subgroups? Norming, performing, forming, or storming? Okay. Wow, you guys are doing great. The storming stage, right? Something's storming. That's what I think about. Like a storm is storming, right? Conflicting subgroups is like, trouble's brewing. That's kind of what comes to my mind. Which theorist's model explicitly includes a stage for addressing the group's formation before the first formal session? Yalom, Schutz, Corey and Corey, or Gazda?
C.
All right. Yeah, this one is C, Corey and Corey. Okay. Corey and Corey has a pre-group and a post-group stage. At the affection stage, according to Schutz, what becomes the primary focus of member interactions? Securing leader approval and acceptance, achieving autonomy from group leadership, establishing interpersonal closeness and mutual support, resolving conflicts and power struggles.
C.
C.
Okay. I'm hearing some B's and I'm seeing a lot of C's. Okay, so this is the affection stage, right? And so it specifically emphasizes interpersonal closeness, right? That's one way of thinking of affection. Mutual aid and emotional support among the members, right? Options A and B reflect earlier stages like inclusion and power, and D reflects kind of these as transition stage dynamics. Okay. Okay, a member consistently resists engaging with emotional content during the transition/storming stage. Which response from the leader best addresses this issue effectively? Avoid addressing the behavior directly to respect member autonomy. Facilitate deeper self-disclosure through structured, emotionally safe activities. Increase structured exercises unrelated to emotional content. Or immediately remove resistant members from the group.
B.
Okay. Good. I'm glad nobody picked D, right? That's not the way to do it, right? Yeah, we want to use that resistance and hesitation to prompt deeper exploration, right? Sometimes just one or two really well-worded questions can use that resistance to help a member grow deeper. Why might excessive use of structured exercises negatively impact group development according to Yalom's warnings? They inhibit emotional expression by overly constraining members. They facilitate deeper trust and cohesion too quickly. They force groups to revisit prior stages unnecessarily, or they encourage independent rather than collaborative interaction.
A.
Okay. Yeah, well, this one is A. They inhibit emotional expression by overly constraining members, right? It's almost like we've got a tight hold on things and there's not room to freely feel because we're holding the rules or the structure too tightly. Okay. The primary leader responsibility during the norming cohesion stage includes addressing intense conflicts and power struggles, encouraging deeper emotional exploration and confrontation, reinforcing group norms and facilitating open, supportive communication, or preparing group members emotionally for termination. Okay, we're almost evenly split here between B and C. Anybody want to defend why they chose B or C? Anybody? Okay, well, the answer is C. Okay, reinforcing group norms and facilitating
I was
open.
getting ready to say that I picked that because I couldn't find my unmute button.
That's funny. Yeah. So
Forget.
yeah, the main role during norming is reinforcing group norms, right? Norming is what's going to be normal. That's what we're reinforcing, facilitating supportive interactions, okay? So when you see norming, think, okay, are we making things normal? Are we providing cohesion? Those are the type of things that we're looking for there. Okay.
That's how you mess up when you read the question wrong.
Yep. Rereading the question can save a lot of trouble if you read it twice, especially if it's a really short question. According to Gaz's model, what distinguishes the transition stage from the exploratory stage? Increased superficial interaction and decreased personal disclosure, decreased member conflict and increased group cohesion, significantly deeper self-disclosure and emotional engagement, complete cessation of conflicts and resistance behaviors.
Yes, it's C,
You tell me.
because of the self-disclosures for the transition one.
Yes. Yes.
Ew.
Good job.
It almost caught me off because it kind of read the same
It's
until
confusing.
again, yeah, reread the question and then yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so rereading the question is a really, really good thing to do, right? Especially if it's a short question, okay? Why would A not be the correct answer?
Because it goes in, is it because of the personal disclosure? I'm looking at the disclosure like both ways. I was looking at disclosure and A and disclosure and C, and I'm like, is it because of decrease in personal disclosure? But it's like we're not trying to decrease the personal disclosure. We're trying to have more disclosure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Jessica. You got it?
I felt like once I reread the question, and like she was saying too, I felt like exploratory. 'Cause at first, that's what I was focused on. I feel like A explains exploratory,
Okay.
like that superficial.
Yeah, it would explain exploratory, except if we're increasing superficial interactions, are we going deeper or more shallow?
It'll be shallow.
Yeah, if we're increasing if we're increasing superficial and we're decreasing personal disclosure, that means we're moving in the opposite direction, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, good. Wasn't trying to trick you there, I promise.
You did.
But it kind of was. Yeah. Okay. During the working and productive stage, what is a leader's most critical intervention? Facilitating exploration of past member experiences exclusively, confronting members frequently to maintain authority, managing superficial interactions to avoid emotional discomfort, or encouraging meaningful interpretations and addressing fears of emotional closeness.
D.
Good. Yes, D. Everybody's choosing D. That was an obvious one, I think. Good. Yeah, D. The working stage is where we're connecting the dots, right? We're providing meaningful interpretations. If people are feeling hesitant about emotional closeness, that's where we're like, okay, let's lean into that rather than leaning away from it. Okay. Last one. Which factor would most likely cause regression from the performing stage back to storming or transition? Clearly defined and mutually accepted group goals, unresolved interpersonal conflict resurfacing within the group, effective leader interventions supporting openness, or members' successful emotional and behavioral changes.
Yeah, B.
B. Okay, good. If you didn't know what the performing stage or the storming stage or the transition stage was, how would you know which was the best answer? Yeah, resurfacing, unresolved. Yeah. If we look at all four of these answers, is there one that doesn't seem to fit with the rest? Yeah, using process of elimination, Roberta.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, we can clearly see that A, C, and D all represent these positive factors, right? That promote forward movement, whereas B is kind of this negative factor, for lack of a better way of describing it, right? It's going to cause regression rather than progression. Okay. So
Yeah, that's true. Because if you look at A, you look at acceptance, and in C, you're looking at supportive, and then D, you're looking at those words. Absolutely.
exactly. So
Mhm.
this is why the passing the NCE with confidence course is really important, is because you can learn some of those actual test taking strategies that don't have anything to do with the content. Okay. You're going to see questions on the test that you didn't prepare for. You're going to read it and you're going to say, what in the world? This was not in anything that I read. Josh did a horrible job because I don't know this at all. Right. And that's okay. You can say that. But what we want to be able to do when we don't recognize the content is still have something in place so we're not just randomly guessing. There's random guessing strategies because we need those too. But if we can use a process of elimination, or if we can look for opposites among the answer choices, there's ways of knowing, okay, if there's two answers that are opposites, it's likely that one of those is the correct choice. In this situation, as Roberta was talking about, process of elimination, three of these are forward moving, one of these is backward moving. It must be the backward moving one because that jives with the question. Okay.